I always make this joke to Melisa that it shouldn't be titled Suddenly, but Vaguely, because Melisa would come on set and said, let's do this, but vaguely. Not very obviously, but vaguely.
Searching without having a goal and basically abandoning a lot of things that society have told us are important to this day is also, in a way, a rebellion to whatever has been offered to us as women.
Welcome to Pop and Politics, your guide to art and culture in Turkey. I'm your host, Kenan Behzat Sharpe. Each week on the show, we host an artist, musician, director, writer, actor, or other creative worker in Turkey. And today we are lucky to be joined by director Melisa Önel and actor Defne Kayalar. Melisa Önel is the director of the 2014 feature film Sea Burners and filmed a part of the 2016 collection of short films Coastliners, in addition to other work. Defne Kayalar is perhaps best known abroad for her role as the therapist Peri in the Netflix series Ethos. She has also acted in Saklı, Turkish adaptation of the celebrated series The Affair, and many other series both on television and streaming platforms. She has also played celebrated roles in many films, including I Am You and Yol Ayrımı. Melisa Önel and Defne Kayalar's latest collaboration is called Suddenly, in its Turkish title Aniden. According to film scholar Aslı Tunç's recent article in Medyascope, Suddenly is a multi-layered story in which you can notice the complexity of the script, the richness of the direction, the beauty of subtle visual nuances hidden in the frame, and minimalist acting. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hello, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Oh, my pleasure, definitely. So I want to ask you first about the film and a little bit about the story and where the title Suddenly comes from.
Yeah. Well, suddenly, this story has been co-written by Feride Çiçekoğlu and me. So I think the title came from this feeling, the ephemeral feeling that the word suddenly has. And in Turkish, it's Aniden. And so sometimes the biggest changes in our lives happen suddenly. And so I think it was that lightness that we were looking for. And that title just gave us that lightness.
And without giving too much away, can you tell us what happened suddenly in the life of the character?
Well, we can say that because it's pretty early on in the film, I can say that she finds out that she may have something serious, a serious illness. And so that kind of knowledge is always probably sudden to a person. And afterwards, all the actions that she takes is very impulsive. So I guess we could say it has that kind of correlation.
Absolutely, yeah. So in the character of Reyhan, you have a very interesting character who's, abandoned her life and is kind of feeling out a way to live in a different way. She's also, really bold in some ways about chasing her own desires and finding a new path for herself. I want to ask you what it was like to portray this character.
Well, the choices were already made in the script in a very specific way that some of the decisions that she's making are very bold and the others are not, doesn't even look like any decisions. And that's why I always make this joke to Melisa that it shouldn't be titled Suddenly, but Vaguely, because Melisa would come on set and said, let's do this, but vaguely. Not very obviously, but vaguely. There are very specific things that's happening to her, just like that, the news of that terminal illness, very sudden change in her life. And then suddenly she realizes that she doesn't want to go on with the life that she's already in. But the changes that she wants to do, she doesn't know about them. She's just, shall I say, searching her own life, like her relationship with her mother, her relationship with Istanbul, her relationship with her past, her own past. She's starting to look into them and with very soft waves goes along or just drifts into another way. But without putting that very strict pressure on herself, like I'm making this decision and from now on it's going to be like that. No, it had been like that in the past and now she's vaguely making new decisions and just seeing where she's going to be taken by them. So yes, the character is very bold, but it also has the freedom of letting this very strong character into the winds and just seeing where she's going to be taken. And actually, while shooting, it was like that. Some things Melisa just wanted as the way it is in the script, but also in the location or in the feeling. She was like, let's try this new approach, shall we? And we did. And it's in the movie.
Yeah, that vagueness is really important because, like you said, she doesn't have a plan. She sort of feels her way into what feels good, and rather late in life is trying to find a new path for herself.
Yes,
to just feeling through it. Yeah, that part's fascinating. I want to ask you about, of course, you wrote the film with Peri and you have a woman in the main role, your cinematographer, Meryem Yavuz, I think, right?
Yeah,
A woman. So you have a team filled of women filmmakers and actors, and it's about a woman's life. I want to ask you what that part means to you, of both working with and portraying women's stories.
I mean, I think it came out very naturally because when we were working, we never came out with we never said, oh, we want to do a project about a woman character, so on and so forth. But that thing that Defne was talking about, that searching without having a goal and basically abandoning a lot of things that society have told us are important to this day, is also in a way a rebellion, let's say, to whatever has been offered to us as women. So it was something that we felt very strongly, and I think that is why the script resonated with a lot of women, and people were drawn as a team, they were drawn to the film, I would say. So our co-producers, some of them are women. Meryem Yavuz, our DOP, is a woman. Our Natalie Eres, our art director, our gaffer, and so on and so forth. We are Cezanne, exactly, our gaffer, and our assistant directors. So I think it speaks to a very, I don't have differentiations like male or female, but it does have a very, it resonates, and it says something about how perhaps women feel freedom or don't in many ways. And how do we go about searching for this? Because we've seen centuries of male characters searching for freedom, searching for their identity, searching for their freedom, for their muses, so on and so forth. So this is a step, I think, towards freedom.
Definitely. Yeah. And in that sense, it made me think a lot about this kind of famous figure of the flaneur who wanders the city, who, in the classical versions, like in Baudelaire, the French poet, it's always a male figure. Yeah. But there's also the figure of the flaneuse. And I know there are examples in Turkish film. For example, in Defne Kayalar Melisa, I think they call it License to Love in English. You have this woman character walking through the city. I'm curious about that part, about you have this woman walking through public space, often very male spaces, and kind of exploring on her own in this way that kind of pushes against what's expected. Yeah. I'm curious about that relationship, if either of you have anything to say about it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, when we were writing the script with Feride, it was something that we were very conscious about, because we started writing the script at a time that we felt that the public space was closing on us. And, if you don't have a space for yourself as women, then you have to claim it, and you have to identify with it, and so on and so forth. So a lot of spaces are already claimed or defined to be used by, let's say, it's male-dominated, basically, most of the public spaces. So in a way, it's a way of reclaiming, but in a very personal way. That walking and experiencing a city and leaving memories and gaining memories is a way of reclaiming. So I think in that respect, it does talk to being a flaneuse and the feeling of searching and independence through the city, instead of, your husband or your family, so on and so forth.
She does it all on her own.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. I don't know, Defne, what was your feeling, since we changed so many locations in Istanbul?
Reyhan, well, there are maybe not in the first view. I realized that some things were already there in the film. Of course, we shot it, but I didn't realize that they were in the final editing. Like very small touches, like when she's buying cigarettes in the streets in the middle of the night in Beyoğlu, two men are passing by and they're checking her out, and she's not doing something very obvious, but just tidying up herself and just changing her way. Yes, because the city is always dominated by men, but Reyhan somehow frees herself from this. Like she's getting involved in this man who does not put very macho spin on the story, shall I say, with Ömer. Even a childish energy that he brings into her life, and she loves it. Very, very compassionate, very soft, but also not unmanly. I mean, there's a man there. She's aroused by him, and also by Şebnem, a woman that she meets at the hotel, and she's also aroused by her, wonders about her. So I think her story lets her into Istanbul, and after a while you get free of that male domination, and you get into everyone, any kind of gender, any kind of perspective, and that's what's very freeing for her, actually. The hotel manager, who might be intimidating when you look from the outside of the window into the hotel, but he's also like a father figure, but also like a friend, and maybe like a mother. He puts his hand on her shoulders, and he's the one that she confides in and tells her own story. So, yeah, it was fluid, but we got there in the story, right? It didn't start like that. I mean, she was getting away from her husband and his expectations, although he wasn't a very toxic male as well. But there were roles, like she's the wife, he's the husband. She's fed up. She's fed up with that.
And it's interesting because, like you're saying, she also experiences different social classes than she would in her own life, because she's, a woman who has a very, professional white-collar job and lives in Germany, and she's suddenly, I don't want to give too much away, but people from very different walks of life, different social classes. So that part's really interesting, how the film opens up from her to this whole other side of Istanbul that she didn't know.
Yes. And also, like, the relationship with her mother, her sister, and her. That's very interesting as well. I mean, she has a very dominating mother, and we talked about this. She's like this male figure in her life, but also like the relationship of the sister and the mother when she watches them. From outside, let's say. I shouldn't give away things, right? Okay. And when the sister says, she did the best, she went away, I should have done that. Well, that's the feeling of a woman in many situations, and that woman isn't necessarily living with a man, but she still feels that way because that's the domination that she sees from her mother.
True.
So Reyhan is neither there nor the other, wherever she is, she's like, she's rebelling to everything, and that's all by itself is, I don't know, a female action here. I think so.
Yeah. I want to ask you both about another aspect of the film. So one interesting part, of course, is we know she loses her sense of smell, which is an interesting kind of disability in a way. Like there's been a lot of portrayals of people who are visually impaired or deaf in film, but to see someone who's lost their sense of smell is fairly new. And I think it seems like you have an interest in disabilities. You have a short film in which you have a man in a wheelchair, and it deals with dance and getting through the city and all these other things. I'm curious about this aspect of disability more generally, and also this losing the sense of smell and how that features into the film.
And I mean, in this film, in Suddenly, I think it relates back to your sense of self. And because, I mean, we relate to the world through our senses. And then if one of them is removed, then are you still the same person? And basically, I mean, how do you realize that you live a life, and how do you realize that you've actually lost your sense of self? You may not realize it. That's another possibility. So it's a wake-up call. And the reason why it's smell, I guess it's because it's very intimately linked to memories. And basically, when Reyhan is coming back to Istanbul, she's going through all her memory spaces. And then through them, she moves on. And, you know, it's a question of if she goes back to her memory space and tries to relive it, is she going to fix the past? I mean, probably not. But there is that link between vitality, feeling yourself, your memories, what makes you you without knowing what it is. Like you're searching for something, but you don't know the goal. You know that you're not yourself, but you don't know what will make you you. So it's, and smell is something like that. If you don't see, you know. It's very specific. And we're very sight-dominated. Cinema, of course, is a sight-dominated area. And when we were writing the script, we tried to focus on how would we portray the sense of smell through imagery? How can it be sensual? So on and so forth. So,
absolutely.
So sensuality was in the visual language was something that we focused on when we thought of smell. So,
yeah, that part's very interesting. And how you portray Reyhan, you can really see how disorientating it is when you can't smell. There are all these moments where normally you would be able to do something and then you can't. So that was really interesting to watch in how you portrayed Reyhan, how important actually smell is, even if we don't think about it all the time.
We talked about this a lot during the rehearsals because it was, smell is never in this media, cinema, how we are going to show it. And I think this is the first time that my nose is filmed this much in any project. But that feeling of getting lost because you lose one of your senses is what I think Melisa was actually looking for. And I think in almost every scene, when we went into that scene, we talked about how we are going to show it. Like when she was looking for the mouse in the kitchen or in the laundry. Or, I mean, any other place, in her grandmother's bed. She was always looking for, and Melisa always on the set asked for an extra shot just to see that that she's trying to smell and she can't. Actually, after a while, she doesn't care about not smelling anymore. And that's, of course, a very positive transformation for her. I know that I'm getting out of the answer and going other places, but
no, please go ahead.
So it was actually it's actually hard because you try not to overact. Like I can't. Well, that's a decision that my director never asked for. Obviously, it wasn't going to be that way, but I love the laundry scene the best in that sense, that because somebody asks her to smell something
to confirm whether it's clean or not,
and
she can't do it.
And the audience knows that she can't, but she still tries and gives it to the person next to her, and we know that we already know that she can't, but she still tries, and I honestly think that she tries. She's not faking. Maybe this is just a hope, but maybe I will smell it. No, she can. There's a very thin line there. Like if you are going to show that desperation and overact, and you shouldn't. You know that you shouldn't, but you still have to give that feeling. So, what if you lose one of your other senses? Anything that you are already capable of.
And she becomes curious about that when she befriends this man who is blind.
Yes.
And there's almost a solidarity between them and an attraction because they're both missing a sense. And that part's really fascinating in the film.
I love the scene where he says, well, one of us is limping and the other is blind, and we are a very good couple. And they are. Actually, they're enjoying each other's company.
Mm-hmm.
She has +1 disability there that she cannot smell, but that's okay.
Absolutely.
That's okay.
So I wanted to ask you guys about how the reception of the film has been so far. So I know you went to Tokyo and you had the world premiere there. And you also had a panel there where you got to talk about the film. And I think you're going to Rotterdam at the end of the month.
Exactly.
How has the rollout been so far, and what's the response been like from audiences?
It's been really good so far. In Japan, we had our first screening there, and now Rotterdam will be our European premiere. So it will be about 3 months or something. But it was, we realized that in the question and answer in Tokyo, that Reyhan, this character, became a person. So it was so, touching, and also it felt so good that to get questions like she was a real person. Yes. Yes. Congratulations to you, and
it was definitely your job.
No,
no, it was yours.
No, but of course, I feel very lucky about working with Defne and everybody else in the team, and I think it is how should I say it? It's an intimate film. And I think I saw that people related to it very intimately. And so let's say, even if they couldn't ask something during Q&A, they would come afterwards, share an experience. So I felt like it opened up a space where we can talk about things. And it was regarded as a sensual film, as speaking to sensations. And basically you have to let this character carry you away, because it's not a goal-oriented film. So it was really nice. I hope that
I'm so happy for this.
Hopefully Rotterdam will be a good experience.
I hope so. Yeah, I know it will. I want to ask you about a more practical part of funding. So I know this was an international co-production. And it seems like a lot of, for independent filmmakers in Turkey, they will go that route. It seems to be helpful. But, funding has been debated a lot after Emin Alper's recent film, Burning Days. The Ministry of Culture and Tourism asked for the funding back. So we're all kind of debating and wondering how independent filmmakers actually manage to make their films, and what are the challenges. What was it like for this film, and how do you see those issues?
For us, it was about 4.5 years of working on the film, and financing, of course, takes a very long time. You first have to secure funding from Turkey, and then you have to move on to co-productions and so on and so forth. So it's a really long process. But with all the new developments that have happened with Burning Days, also gives makes one feel very, very insecure of the possibility of making other films, or what will happen, because you feel that you are receiving a fund, and that fund is the only way that you can co-produce with another country, because these are bilateral agreements between countries. So either there has to be a way where other countries realize that Turkish filmmakers may not have government funding, and they should still be eligible for co-productions, or else, the climate could get worse and worse, and less stable, and less, where filmmakers become more fearful of making their films, because you have to risk a lot to be able to make these independent films. So
definitely. So if there's a threat that the funding could be taken back, it makes people more maybe want to self-censor or be more cautious.
Definitely, right? Definitely. And the process there of having your script re-evaluated, and that all should be very transparent, of course, and should have a certain timeline, so on and so forth, so that everybody knows what the next step is, so on and so forth. So it's a lot of uncertainty, and a very heavy load, I think, on filmmakers.
Absolutely, yeah. I want to ask you guys, I know my viewers are probably curious when they can finally see the film. Do you have an expected release date for Turkey yet?
It depends on our festival journey. We first have to complete that.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, we will be distributing with Başka Sinema.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to say that, within 2023, we will be hopefully in cinemas.
Wonderful. Yeah. And while I have you both here, as celebrated actor, celebrated director, I want to ask what other projects you guys are working on. I believe you have a Netflix series that you're continuing, and also a Disney Plus series, perhaps, or is that already done?
The shootings have already been wrapped. We are dubbing little things. Yeah, it's in the post-production phase right now. Kuş Uçuşu, As the Crow Flies, for Netflix. We are shooting the second season, and at the end of February, probably we will get into the third season. Some other projects I'm reading,
Mm-hmm.
2 theater projects as well. So, yeah.
Exciting. So lots to expect from you in the new year. That's great. And I heard you were maybe working on a film or thinking about a film that has to do with dance. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. We started up with Feride, and so we're working on the script. And I am interested in dance and movement, and how body is used in cinema, so on and so forth. So that is underway.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to talk about Suddenly, and I'm excited to have everyone else have the chance to finally see it.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
My
thank
pleasure.
you so much.